Welcome to this mini session on loops in JavaScript. In the description box below, you will find links to the online compiler I'm using, a reference guide to JavaScript syntax, and a handout I prepared containing all the code I will use. Okay, let's dive in. First, I declare an array called rhyme containing the text, "The cat sat on the mat." I print it to the screen using console.log, either the whole rhyme array or one element by adding in a number. As we see, 0 gives me the. If I wanted to print out every element, I would have to copy and paste that line of code 6 times, changing the number in the square brackets, the index, beginning with 0 and going on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It works well enough here for 6 statements, but what if you have 100 words in an array or millions of words from a text? We'd need to use a loop. Basically speaking, there are 2 types of loop, the for loop and the while loop. Both repeat some code until a specified condition is met, and each in their own way has a count it increases with each iteration. So let's apply this to our code, starting with for. I change the number in the square brackets rhyme to I for index. I type in for, open bracket, I initialize I, the index, by setting I equal to 0. My condition is I is less than or equal to 5, and then I increase I by 1 each time. I can either do I plus 1 or I plus plus. The I becomes a number, it gets passed to the rhyme element, and we cycle through until we get the whole sentence, which gives us the same result as cutting and pasting did, but all in one line. I want the output to be user-friendly, so I declare a sentence as a string, and each time I go through the loop, I append the next element in the rhyme array to my string sentence. I then change rhyme to sentence in the console log statement so that I can see as the sentence builds up. Once I know it works, I move my sentence outside the loop, so it only gets printed once. And now we can start analysing our text. Say I wish to count the number of the's in my text, I would create a the count, set it to 0, and then set up an if statement to test if rhyme I is equal to the. If it is, I increase the count so I can see how many times there is a the in my text. And that is a simple for loop analysing text. If we choose the while loop in this example, it only has the condition statement in the while loop, so I initialize I outside the loop, setting it to 0, and then at the bottom after, I increase by 1. It works exactly the same way. But where the while loop does come into its own is if you don't know how many times you've got to loop over some text. In this case, I will add another element to my array called fullstop, which marks the end of my text. And I will set my while condition to while is not equal to full stop to keep circling through. The loop will execute, putting out the cat sat on the mat, and it will stop and exit my loop at full stop. However, a common way of exiting out of your loop when you don't know how long it should be is to put in breaks and returns. So in the case that we are searching for something specific and we might not want to loop through all of the text that we have, we will set up another if statement. I set up if rhyme is equal to on break, so the code will break out the loop because we have found the word on and we don't need to continue to the end. The cat sat on, and the number of the's is 1 because we're not counting any further after on. If we replace break with a return and run this code, we don't see anything at all, as the code has exited the loop before it completed the rest of it. We would have to move our console.log statements above the break to see what's going on. Break and return work very differently. And this is a very small snippet of code, but imagine you've got thousands of lines of code and an enormous set of data and you're not getting the results you need. It could take you a long while to figure out where you've actually used a break or a return and what the logic is actually doing. This is why I tend to avoid break and return, and I prefer the solution I presented first with an end marker, in my case full stop, to indicate the end of my text. I let the whole loop complete, and in this way, from a logic point of view, I have one entry and exit point in and out of my loop, which is clearly set out in the code. Now it's your turn. Take a look at the code I've used in the handout and practice the for and the while loops, experimenting with them to see how they function. And then, if you're very comfortable with this, open up the JavaScript primer, reference guide, and explore the different types of for and while statements that JavaScript has, and think about when you might want to use them, instead of the 2 basic while and for loops presented here.